Everybody's looking for a hero. I am not a hero. That was a part. I played the part. I'm not that man.
There was a moment in December 1978 when audiences sat in darkened theaters and genuinely believed a man could fly. The film that created that feeling wasn't just a superhero movie. It was an event, a cultural landmark, a piece of cinema that still holds up nearly 5 decades later. The cast that brought it to life included legends, rising stars, and faces that would go on to define generations of Hollywood storytelling. Some are still with us, some are not. So today, we're looking back at Superman, 1978. What happened to the cast then and now in 2026? Christopher Reeve, Clark Kent/Superman. There is no version of this story that doesn't begin with Christopher Reeve. He was the center of everything. The reason the film worked, the reason audiences believed in it, and the reason the Superman franchise would run for 4 films over nearly a decade. Before he was cast, the production had considered hundreds of actors. What they needed was someone who could convincingly play 2 entirely different people, the bumbling, mild-mannered Clark Kent and the commanding, superhuman Man of Steel, and make both feel real. Reeve did it effortlessly. Born Christopher Dollier, Reeve on September 25, 1952 in New York City, he grew up in Princeton, New Jersey, where he discovered a love for acting at age 9. He studied at Cornell University and then at the Juilliard School, where one of his classmates was Robin Williams. By the time he was cast in Superman, he had made his Broadway debut in 1976 in A Matter of Gravity alongside Katharine Hepburn. He was 25 years old and almost entirely unknown to film audiences. What followed that debut was a career built with deliberate intention. Reeve turned down big-budget offers that would have kept him locked inside the Cape, choosing instead to pursue roles in independent films and stage productions that challenged him as an actor. He appeared in Somewhere in Time, 1980, a romantic drama opposite Jane Seymour that developed a devoted cult following. He starred in Death Trap, 1982, a stage adaptation opposite Michael Caine. In 1993, he played a congressman in The Remains of the Day alongside Anthony Hopkins, and according to his son Will, it was the role he was most proud of. He returned to play Superman in 3 sequels: Superman 2, 1980, Superman 3, 1983, and Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, 1987, each time bringing the same quiet dignity to the role even as the scripts around him varied in quality. Then came May 27, 1995. Reeve was competing in an equestrian event in Culpeper, Virginia, when his horse, Eastern Express, stopped abruptly before a fence. Reeve was thrown forward and landed on his head. The injury severed his spinal cord at the top of the vertebra, leaving him paralyzed from the neck down and dependent on a ventilator to breathe. He was 42 years old. Doctors told his family the situation was desperate. In the early days of his recovery, consumed by pain and despair, he contemplated ending his life. It was his wife, Dana Morosini, who brought him back, telling him simply, "You're still you, and I love you." Those words became the title of his 1998 memoir, Still Me, which spent 11 weeks on the bestseller list. But they also became the philosophy that defined everything he did afterward. Reeve refused to become a passive symbol. He established what eventually became the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, which became the leading organization funding spinal cord injury research, a field once described as the graveyard of neurobiology. He lobbied Congress for research funding. He made a celebrated appearance at the 1996 Academy Awards that left the audience breathless. He returned to acting, earning a Golden Globe nomination for his performance in a television remake of Rear Window in 1998. He directed a television film, The Brooke Ellison Story, in 2004. By 2000, he had regained movement in one finger. He could feel touch across much of his body and detect heat and cold. He said publicly that he intended to walk again. He never got the chance. Christopher Reeve died on October 10, 2004, at the age of 52 from heart failure following a cardiac arrest. He was buried at his home in Bedford, New York. Dana Reeve, who had stood beside him through every day of those 9 years, died of lung cancer just 18 months later in March 2006. In 2024, a documentary titled Super/Man, the Christopher Reeve story, premiered at the Sundance Film Festival and received widespread praise for its honesty and depth. On the 20th anniversary of his death, the Empire State Building was lit in his honor. He had 3 children, Matthew and Alexandra from a previous relationship, and Will, who graduated from Middlebury College and works as a reporter for ABC News. Christopher Reeve was Superman before he wore the costume, and after he could no longer stand. That is a fact that no amount of time will diminish. Margot Kidder, Lois Lane. Margot Kidder brought a crackling, restless energy to Lois Lane that no one who grew up watching Superman has ever forgotten. Her Lois was sharp, reckless, driven, and entirely capable of holding her own scene with the most powerful man on Earth. The chemistry between her and Reeve was genuine and warm, built on a real friendship that developed during the long months of production, including the wire work sequences where the two spent extended periods literally strapped together in harnesses above studio floors. Born Margaret Ruth Kidder on October 17, 1948, in Yellowknife, in Canada's Northwest Territories, she grew up in a family that moved frequently due to her father's work as a mining engineer. She began acting in the late 1960s and built her reputation through a mixture of Canadian film, Hollywood horror, and comedy. Black Christmas, 1974, and The Amityville Horror, 1979, were among her most notable early credits before Superman made her internationally famous. She was, by any measure, perfectly cast. Lois Lane, as written in the script, was smart, pushy, and a little reckless, a woman who jumped out of a helicopter window in the first act because the story was worth it. Kidder understood the character instinctively. She gave Lois a rough-edged authenticity that made her feel like a real journalist rather than a movie version of one. And the friendship she developed with Christopher Reeve during production was genuine, built during long, grueling days of filming that required both actors to trust each other completely. She reprised the role of Lois Lane in all 4 Superman films through 1987, and later returned in 2 episodes of the television series Smallville, where she appeared alongside Reeve in a touching reunion shortly before his death. But the years after the Superman franchise ended were marked by real difficulty. A 1990 car accident left her unable to work for nearly 2 years and plunged her into serious debt. The financial strain, combined with her long and painful struggle with bipolar disorder, led to a breakdown in 1996 that became widely publicized. She disappeared for 4 days and was found by a stranger in a backyard in Los Angeles, disoriented and in distress. She was taken to psychiatric care and afterward made the decision to speak openly about her experience. What she did with that moment was significant. Rather than retreating from it, Kidder became an advocate for mental health awareness, speaking candidly about bipolar disorder at a time when very few public figures were willing to do so. She eventually settled in Livingston, Montana, and in her later years was known as a passionate political activist. She was arrested in Washington, D.C. in 2011 during a protest against the proposed Keystone XL pipeline. She continued working in film and television into her 60s, accumulating more than 130 acting credits over the course of her career. Margot Kidder passed away on May 13, 2018, at her home in Livingston, Montana. She was 69 years old. Her death was later ruled a suicide by the Park County coroner. She was survived by her daughter, Maggie McGuane. Her daughter said publicly, "It's important to be open and honest so there's not a cloud of shame in dealing with this." It was Gene Hackman, Lex Luthor. Gene Hackman played Lex Luthor with enormous relish, vain, theatrical, funny, and genuinely threatening in moments. and his performance remains one of the most entertaining villain portrayals in superhero cinema. It was a role that required exactly the right balance, and Hackman struck it perfectly. Menacing enough to be taken seriously, broad enough to match the film's tone, and charismatic enough to steal scenes from Marlon Brando. By the time Superman came out in 1978, Hackman was already a two-time Oscar nominee and the winner of the Academy Award for Best Actor for The French Connection, 1971. He was one of the most respected actors working in Hollywood. Born Eugene Allen Hackman on January 30th, 1930 in San Bernardino, California, he had a hard early life. His father left the family when he was 13, and he didn't find acting until his 30s, training at the Pasadena Playhouse alongside Dustin Hoffman. He would win a second Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven in 1993 and build one of the most distinguished filmographies of his generation, with credits including The Conversation, 1974, Mississippi Burning, 1988, The Firm, 1993, Crimson Tide, 1995, The Royal Tenenbaums, 2001, and Runaway Jury, 2003. He retired from acting after 2004, moved with his wife Betsy Arakawa to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and spent his final years painting and writing novels in private. Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa were found dead at their Santa Fe home on February 26, 2025. Investigators determined that Arakawa had died first, around February 11th, from hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, a rare illness. Hackman, who was suffering from advanced Alzheimer's disease, is believed to have died around February 18, 2025, of cardiovascular disease, with Alzheimer's listed as a contributing factor. He was 95 years old. There were no signs of foul play. Tributes poured in from across the industry. Clint Eastwood said of him simply, "There was no finer actor than Gene." Marlon Brando, Jor-El. Marlon Brando appeared in Superman as Jor-El, the doomed scientist and father of Kal-El, in a role that lasted approximately 12 minutes on screen, and for which he was paid a reported $3.7 million, one of the largest fees in Hollywood history at the time. The casting was a statement. Having Brando in the film announced to audiences that this was not a throwaway entertainment. This was a serious production. Born Marlon Brando Jr. on April 3, 1924, in Omaha, Nebraska, he was widely regarded as the greatest actor of the 20th century, having redefined screen performance with A Streetcar Named Desire, 1951, On the Waterfront, 1954, for which he won his first Oscar, The Godfather, 1972, his second Oscar, and Last Tango in Paris, 1972. His influence on acting was so profound that it is almost impossible to overstate it. Nearly every significant performer who came after him worked in the shadow of what he had done. When Terrence Stamp received the telegram that brought him back to Hollywood for Superman, the words that moved him most were, "You have scenes with Marlon Brando." That tells you everything you need to know about what Brando meant to the people who worked alongside him. His later career was uneven. He was famously difficult on sets, and his personal life carried considerable tragedy, including the death of his son Christian Brando and the killing of his daughter, Cheyenne's boyfriend, by Christian. He became increasingly reclusive in his final years, living on his private island in French Polynesia and rarely appearing in public. He died on July 1, 2004, at UCLA Medical Center from lung failure. He was 80 years old. His death came just 3 months before Christopher Reeves, two of the film's most significant figures gone in the same year. Ned Beatty. Otis. Ned Beatty played Otis, Lex Luthor's bungling, good-natured henchman, with a loose, physical comedy that made every scene he appeared in warmer and funnier. It was the kind of supporting role that lesser actors turn into a one-note gag, but Beatty gave Otis a genuine, lived-in silliness that audiences loved. born on July 6, 1937 in Louisville, Kentucky, Beatty was one of Hollywood's most prolific and versatile character actors. He made his film debut in Deliverance, 1972, in a role that was deeply difficult and powerful, and within a few years had established himself as one of the most sought-after supporting players in the business. He received an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor for his extraordinary one-scene performance in Network, 1976, a scene he reportedly filmed in a single day. What made that performance extraordinary was its sheer compression. Beatty walked into a scene, delivered a monologue that would have been the highlight of most entire films, and walked out. It was the work of a master craftsman who understood that sometimes one scene, done right, is all it takes. His other credits included All the President's Men, 1976, Hopscotch, 1980, Charlie Wilson's War, 2007, and the voice of Lotso in Toy Story 3, 2010, which introduced him to an entirely new generation of admirers. Through all of it, Beatty maintained the quality that defined his best work, a grounded, unshowy humanity that made every character feel like someone who existed before the cameras started rolling and would go on existing after they stopped. Ned Beatty died on June 13, 2021, at his home in Los Angeles. He was 83 years old. His manager reported that he died of natural causes, surrounded by friends and family. The tributes that followed recognized him as exactly what he had always been, one of the finest character actors American cinema ever produced. Jackie Cooper, Perry White. Jackie Cooper played Perry White, the gruff, no-nonsense editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet, in all 4 Superman films from 1978 to 1987. It was the kind of authoritative supporting role that Cooper played with ease, grounded in decades of experience, and a calm that only comes from someone who has been doing this for a very, very long time. The phrase, "a very long time," barely covers it. Jackie Cooper had been working as an actor since 1929, when he began appearing in the Our Gang comedy shorts as a child. In 1931, at the age of 9, he was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actor for the film Skippy, making him, at the time, the youngest person ever nominated in that category. That record stood for nearly 80 years. He successfully navigated the notoriously difficult transition from child star to adult actor, eventually working as a director in television and earning 2 Primetime Emmy Awards for that work. He also built a distinguished parallel career as a U.S. Navy officer, retiring at the rank of captain in 1982 and receiving the Legion of Merit. He announced his retirement from entertainment in 1989 at the age of 67, saying he had worked 64 years. He spent his final decades quietly, refusing to participate in nostalgia-driven retrospectives. Jackie Cooper was interred with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery on November the 22nd. Glenn Ford, Pa Kent. Glenn Ford played Jonathan Kent, the quiet, steady Kansas farmer who raises Kal-El as his own son and instills in him the values that will define Superman forever. In a brief but emotionally resonant early section of the film, Ford brought a natural warmth and gravitas to the role that set the tone for everything that followed. His presence on screen felt like a guarantee of quality. Born Gwilyn Samuel Newton Ford on May 1st, 1916, in Saint Christine d'Auvergne, Quebec, Canada, he had been one of Hollywood's biggest box office draws from the 1940s through the 1960s. Gilda, 1946, Blackboard Jungle, 1955, The Big Heat, 1953, and Pocketful of Miracles, 1961, for which he won a Golden Globe, were among the highlights of a career that lasted more than 50 years. Quigley's annual box office champions list named him the top draw in American cinema in 1958. He was also a U.S. Naval Reserve captain and a genuine veteran of World War II, much like his Superman colleague Jackie Cooper. There was something fitting about a man of that generation, calm, solid, decent, playing Jonathan Kent, the father who gives Superman his values. He retired from acting in 1991 and spent his final years in Beverly Hills dealing with the effects of several strokes that left him in fragile health. Glenn Ford died at his Beverly Hills home on August 30th, 2006. He was 90 years old. Terrence Stamp, General Zod. Terrence Stamp appeared only briefly in the 1978 film. His scenes as General Zod were filmed with the understanding that the role would expand in a planned sequel, but he brought such magnetic, ice-cold authority to those few minutes that audiences remembered him vividly. And when Superman 2 came out in 1980, his Zod became one of the most quoted villains in cinema history. Born Terrence Henry Stamp on July 22, 1938, in Stepney, East London, he rose from working-class origins to become one of the most distinctive faces of 1960s British cinema. His very first film role, in Billy Budd, 1962, earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. During the swinging 60s, he was one of London's brightest stars, sharing a flat with his friend Michael Caine as both conquered Hollywood. He starred in films for Federico Fellini and worked alongside some of the era's greatest directors. His career went through a difficult middle period, during which he stepped back from Hollywood and spent time traveling through India and elsewhere, years he later described as transformative. He spoke in interviews about how that time away fundamentally changed his sense of himself as a performer. "I no longer saw myself as a leading man," he said. "I decided I was a character actor, and I can do anything." It was that shift in perspective that allowed him to approach General Zod with the cold, theatrical authority he brought to the role. His return to prominence, partly through Superman, was followed by remarkable range. The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, 1994, where he played a transgender woman with a tenderness that surprised audiences and critics who expected only villainy from him. Steven Soderbergh's The Limey, 1999, a lean, brilliant thriller, and Wanted, 2008, among his later credits. He also voiced Jor-El in the television series Smallville, returning to the Superman universe in an entirely new form and finding a new generation of fans. Terrence Stamp passed away peacefully on August 17, 2025, at the age of 87. His family confirmed his death, but did not disclose the cause or place of passing. Tributes came from across the film world, remembering a man of extraordinary range, elegance, and discipline, and an actor who had never stopped growing. Valerie Perrine, Eve Teschmacher. Valerie Perrine played Eve Teschmacher, Lex Luthor's glamorous and ultimately conscience-stricken girlfriend, with a light comic touch that made her one of the film's most charming supporting figures. She was warm, funny, and believable, and she held her own in every scene she shared with Hackman and Beatty. Born September 3rd, 1943 in Galveston, Texas, Perrine had worked as a Las Vegas showgirl before breaking into acting in the early 1970s. Her performance in Slaughterhouse-Five, 1972, drew attention, but it was her portrayal of Honey Bruce in Lenny, 1974, the wife of comedian Lenny Bruce, played by Dustin Hoffman, that earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress and the Best Actress prize at the Cannes Film Festival. It was one of the most praised performances of that decade, and it established her as a genuinely powerful screen presence. Her range was striking. She could be funny and warm on one side and raw and devastating on the other. Superman followed in 1978, and she reprised the role in Superman 2. Her later career included a range of film and television appearances across the 1980s and 1990s, including Work in the Border, 1982, and multiple television series. She remained a beloved figure among fans of the original franchise and spoke warmly of her time with the cast throughout her later years. In her later years, she was candid about living with Parkinson's disease, which she had battled for an extended period. Valerie Perrine, died on March 23, 2026 in Beverly Hills. She was 82 years old. Her death was confirmed by multiple outlets, with the cause reported as complications from Parkinson's disease. The timing, barely months before this video was made, is a sobering reminder of how much has changed in the 48 years since that cast assembled on a set. Mark McClure, Jimmy Olsen. Mark McClure played Jimmy Olsen, the eager young photographer at the Daily Planet, and brought an easy, likable energy to a role that could easily have been forgettable. He reprised the role in all 4 Superman films and in the 1984 Supergirl film, making him one of the few cast members to appear across the entire original franchise. Born on March 13, 1957, in San Mateo, California, McClure worked steadily in television and film throughout the 1970s and 1980s. His most prominent non-Superman credit came in 1985 when he appeared as Dave McFly, Marty's father, in Back to the Future, another beloved film that became a pop culture institution. That dual connection to 2 of the most iconic franchises of the era gives McClure a distinctive place in film history. There are not many actors who can say they appeared in both Superman and Back to the Future, and while neither role was the lead, both films are the kind that people carry with them for decades. He reprised the role of Jimmy Olsen in Superman 2, Superman 3, Superman 4, and Supergirl, 1984, demonstrating the kind of consistency and loyalty that the franchise earned from its cast. After the Superman series concluded, he continued working in television and independent film through the 1990s and into the 2000s. He has maintained a low public profile in recent years and has stepped largely away from acting. As of 2026, he is 69 years old. Fans who remember him as the wide-eyed, enthusiastic Jimmy Olsen will always have a warm place for him. Director Richard Donner. A final note. No account of the Superman cast is complete without acknowledging the man behind the camera who made all of it possible. Richard Donner directed Superman with a commitment to emotional reality and a refusal to be cynical about its source material. His instruction to the cast and crew, captured in a single word he kept on his desk throughout production, verisimilitude, set the standard for everything the film attempted. He wanted the audience to believe it was real, and they did. That instinct, to treat the material with genuine respect and to ask audiences to take it seriously, was not universal at the time. Superhero films were not considered serious cinema. What Donner understood was that the only way to make the fantasy work was to play it straight, to surround Superman with real performances and real emotion, and to never wink at the camera. Every director who has made a superhero film since owes him something for that. Donner went on to direct The Omen, already behind him by 1978, Lethal Weapon, 1987, and its 3 sequels, Scrooged, 1988, Maverick, 1994, and many others. He was widely regarded as one of the most gifted popular filmmakers of his generation. Richard Donner died on July 5, 2021, at the age of 91, just weeks after Ned Beatty. The 2 of them left in the same summer. 48 years ago, a film told us we could believe a man could fly. Some of the people who brought that story to life went on to achieve extraordinary things. Some lived long, full careers and left quietly. Some carried tremendous pain alongside their success, and some became heroes in their own right, not in capes, but in the way they lived and the causes they fought for. It's a remarkable thing, looking back at a cast like this one. Christopher Reeve, who played a man of steel and then showed the world what real strength looked like from a wheelchair. Margot Kidder, difficult years into a platform for honesty about mental health. Gene Hackman, who simply went home and stopped performing when he decided he was done, without ceremony. Marlon Brando, who had already changed everything before he put on the white robes of Jor-El. Ned Beatty, who made people laugh in Superman and then walked into a boardroom in Network and made your spine go cold. Terrence Stamp, who never stopped reinventing himself across 6 decades. The world of Superman, 1978, is now woven into the past, but its cast left something behind that doesn't age the same way people do. Every one of them, in their own way, contributed to a film that still inspires and still moves audiences. The same one you might have seen in a theater with someone you loved, in a year that feels both very close and very far away. If this video brought back some of those memories, please take a moment to like it and subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep bringing you these looks back at the films and the people who made them matter. We'll see you in the next one.